Good morning. It's lovely to see you guys. I appreciate you showing up. A lot of you are new to me, so welcome to Thriving Beyond Codependency with me. That's what I do. I'm big on this. I am I don't use the word recovery a lot, but I have returned to myself. I've liberated from my own codependency. I have also been on the side of being the perpetrator a bit. In my marriage, I was not a very healthy man. So I can understand the side of where toxic behaviors come from, right? So I've had to deal with my own internalized narcissistic behavior that I absorbed from my parents, my childhood, and had to resolve that in tandem with my own codependency. So I can have some insight onto both sides of this aisle. So I'm excited you guys are here. Today we're going to talk about this thing called justice. This I need justice. I want them to own their behavior. I want them to give a shit about how they affected me. Guys, this is a need that's utterly normal and natural and understandable. We want to be seen. We want to feel like what we went through mattered, right? That it was real. We finally want them to just acknowledge that, hey, you caused me harm. You hurt me. Can't you just own that? Sometimes we want just accountability, like, hey, why don't you get to have some pain, right? Let's have some consequences for you. Very, very natural. Very, very understandable. I'm going to repeat that again. This is natural. This is normal. This is actually a signal of you healing. Because what's going on is you're moving out of that fawn state that narcissistic abuse and neglect and all that puts us into. And you're moving into assertiveness. So the way I look at like emotional growth as like steps. So you start down here with depression and grief and denial and then grief and then anger and then aggression, then assertiveness. Well, the need for justice, the need for consequence to happen, the need for your experience to be valid, to be validated, to be legitimized, is that step of between, well, it's part of the journey into your assertiveness and into your confidence. Because now you're allying yourself with your experience rather than being an enemy, you're aligned with it. So you're beginning to believe yourself. You're beginning to go, hey, this was wrong and I want accountability. I want some justice with this. Very natural. Okay? So it's actually a signal of healing. The trick here is a lot of times people get stuck here. I got stuck for a while, and that's because I thought I must have justice in order to move on, which means I was still hoping and seeking the other person to change, to acknowledge what they did to me, to actually care and empathize, to conceptualize their own impact on my life. So I was still attached to them. It's still what I call externally oriented. I needed them to do something so I could feel something, right? This will screw us over long term because narcissistic individuals aren't going to do this, okay? And there's some really important reasons why. So in childhood development, there's this thing that happens that's termed as theory of mind. Okay, theory of mind is basically a concept that says I can synthesize what you might think about something because I understand you enough to know that you will like this or you won't like this, or if I did this, you would feel this way. It's also the concept that says that other people have different points of view and opinions on things, and they think differently than I do. This is where some of the genesis of empathy comes in. And it has to be nurtured. Okay, theory of mind is something that generally is nurtured into the child, and different kinds of personality types tend to be more prone to developing it faster than others. At least that's my hunch. I don't really have a lot of science behind this, but just in my experience with myself and others over the 12 years of doing this, 11 and a half years, 11 and a half years, it seems to point that certain personality types are more prone to narcissistic behavior and certain personality types are prone to codependent behavior. So if you take the personality color test, you got red, blue, white, and yellow. Reds tend towards narcissism. Blues tend towards borderline if you're looking at personality disorders. Whites tend towards codependency, and yellows tend towards avoidance. So that's just me, though. Just some of Marshall doctrine, I guess. It's my stuff. But at any rate, if the person hasn't developed the concept that other people have a different point of view, and that point of view matters just as much as their point of view matters, they're not going to care how they impact you because they don't empathize with your experience. They don't see your feelings and your experience as legitimate or valid or as important as theirs. That's the grandiose nature of a narcissistic person, is they think of their experience is the experience. They think everyone thinks like them. And if you don't think like them, there's something wrong with you, right? This is why they get so flustered and upset and angry when you counter them with things that they don't agree with or they think isn't the truth, because they experience what's called cognitive dissonance, which creates a split in the mind where two opposing truths are true at the same time. The brain shuts down, gets angry, they lash out at you. This is where that's coming from. Very, very important to understand with this nature, because frankly, you're not going to get past it. When you accept that the person you're dealing with isn't going to see your point of view, you can start to move into the validation and legitimization of your experience. Because just because they don't agree with you, they don't believe you, doesn't mean your experience was invalid. It doesn't mean you're wrong. It doesn't mean what you experienced is wrong. It doesn't mean you're misunderstanding things. It means that you can believe you anyway. Okay? And this is where we begin to become more and more free of the need for justice, the need for them to own their shit, the need for consequence to happen. Because now we're not seeking them and not seeking from them the validation of what we went through. Instead, we're becoming autonomized or becoming more independent from them. And we're going, you know what? You don't believe me. That's fine, because I believe me. I stand with my experience, and I can trust my experience. This is also part of how we liberate from the impact of gaslighting events, right? Because gaslighting turns yourself against you. You start questioning the recall of the experiences. You start questioning the facts. You start questioning what you felt. Well, when we reverse that and we're going, I can actually identify what happened. See, when you're dealing with narcissistic, abusive, gaslighting individuals, do not deal in feelings, because they can just turn that around on you. Deal in facts only. So the facts are, you did this, you said that. They don't match up. That's lying. What's going on? When I've had to confront narcissistic people like that, it's just like, you did this and you said this. That's reality. And I just stare at them. I don't say anything else. You just leave it there. And then they're going to fluster, and then they're going to get upset, and then they're going to pivot, or they're going to DARVO, which is deny, attack, and reverse order of offender, victim and offender. So basically, they make you, well, you shouldn't have done that. Well, if you hadn't done that, I wouldn't have done this. So they blame you for their behavior. That tells you you won. Because logic, they can't compete with logic, because logic breaks everything for them. They can't reason with it. So you step back. Generally, though, you're never going to win with them, because they don't want to own what they did, because they sincerely believe, guys, that you made them feel a certain way. They think people, places, and things outside of them create feelings inside of them, and that those people, places, and things are responsible for making them feel a certain way, for emotionally regulating them. They really believe that's the way the world works. That's why they feel so entitled. That's why they feel so victimized. Is because they think people, places, and things outside of them are controlling them. Which in reality, that's not happening at all. Our feelings, our experiences are generated by our psychology, by our programming, by what's within us. They are not generated outside of us. So when we understand that, we can look at that and understand that, oh yeah, dude, Mr. Narcissistic person or abusive person, sounds like you've got to work your shit out there. Time for you to grow up. But there's nothing you can do with that because that's outside your yard. You have no power in that. You're never supposed to have power in that, so you don't even have to seek it. It's just like, well, it sounds like that person's going to have a rough life. Your job at this point is to remove your focus from them changing and from them validating and acknowledging you and move it to legitimizing you, to believing your experience, to becoming that ally of your emotions, to really accept and anchor deeply emotionally in your body the reality that what you have felt and what you have gone through and what you have suffered and lost matters. It's real. It's important, and it's worth knowing, it's worth understanding, and it's worth caring about to you, for you. I mean, basically it's you to you. You care about this inside yourself, and you associate with people who believe you, who care about you, and who legitimize with you the feelings and experience you've been through. Okay? You need people who believe you. You need people who've been through it so they can go, yeah, totally, you're not crazy. This is real. And it sucks. And we've got your back. You need to know that you're not alone in this experience and that you're not misunderstanding it. When we get out of that crazy fog they put us into with gaslighting, we get rooted in reality, we start believing ourselves, and we have people who believe us and who have our back in it. The need for justice starts to drop. It's not going to go away entirely, but it starts to lower because now you're validating you rather than seeking that through their acknowledgement or consequence or validation from the narcissist. Further, the more you stand in your desire for justice, the stronger you become in understanding what your boundaries are. You stop tolerating abusive behavior. You stop tolerating immature behavior because you don't want to pay this cost again. You don't want to go down this road again. You want to be free. So that freedom takes you forward. That freedom's found in standing in the ownership of what the cost is for the relationship you went through. Because now you're no longer dependent on them changing. You're choosing to change because you're going, okay, there are things I did and did not do that put me in this position. What am I going to do next time? What am I going to tolerate? What am I not going to tolerate? What really matters to me? What really is significant enough for me to end a relationship like that? When we really get concrete with knowing our boundaries, the need for justice it drops down farther because suddenly we're advocating for ourselves and we're minimizing the probability of being harmed again in future relationships. That doesn't mean you're not going to end up encountering abusive, toxic people or people with abusive, toxic behaviors and tendencies. Okay? That's going to happen. The difference this time is you're going to be able to smell it and you're going to trust your gut on this one. 99% of my clients knew from the get-go that the person they were dealing with, something was off, something was wrong here. But because of codependent programming, because of conditioning that taught them to tolerate these things, question themselves rather than question the person, they bypassed their intuition, their gut instinct, and they gave in to the cycle. What's funny is when they exit the trauma bond, they exit the love addiction, and they start coming back to themselves, they start remembering this. They're like, yeah, man, when I met them, something was really off, and I didn't listen to it. I'm like, that's the voice you listen to. That's your voice talking. That's your intuition talking. But because they were not properly rooted in their value, their sense of worth, their innate value, they gave in. They gave in to the cycle of love bombing and devaluing and discarding that the narcissistic person put them through. This is why in my system in healing codependency, I start with value. Because when you're anchored in your value, intrinsic value, innate value, it's called felt sense somatic value, So it doesn't have a lot of descriptive terms. You just feel it and you anchor in that. That's your reference for yourself, called internal orientation. You don't give in. You're like, whoa, my voice is speaking. I'm out. See ya. You're not playing with it anymore. You can see them from a mile away. You can smell them. I mean, so I can smell them. I'm just like, oh, there's a problem over here. And you avoid it because you don't need them anymore. Because you're more fully seated in your power and your authority and your beingness and the rightness of you. Okay? So the movement out of the need for justice is through validation and legitimization of your experience, your feelings, your recall, your memory. The validation of the need for justice just validates, like, yeah, of course I want this. This is natural. Look what I've been through. That this makes sense. And then connecting with and being surrounded with people who believe you, who honor you, who advocate for you, so that you can also feel safe enough to advocate for yourself, stand up for yourself, say no when you need to, say yes when you want to, and be you. Guys, this is how we work through the lack of getting justice and the lack of consequence that tends to happen for the narcissist. They don't get the consequences they deserve because they have that nice, tailored, polished public facade, and when people confront them, when people out them, they're like, this dude's abusive, this is what's going on. What do? Oh, guys, look, they're expressing their dysfunction and trauma on me. They're attacking me. Look at this display of crazy over here. See, they don't own it. They don't sit back and go, yeah, I really screwed up. I screwed up bad. No, they're not going to do that. Sometimes they will actually say those words. I've seen this before. I have a number of clients that have gone through this, but they'll say like, but my partner said, of course I'm screwing up. I'm going to go get therapy. And guess what? What do you think happens there? Okay? A healthy person will gladly do therapy and work it out. But the narcissistic person will go to therapy and then suddenly they're like, I don't really think I'm the problem. I think you're the problem. You treat me, you upset me when you confront me with these things. And I really think you need to work out your issues. We should go to therapy so you can work out your issues. And then they turn the therapist against you, thus making you look more crazy, right? So fundamentally, your need for justice matters. Your desire for them to be held to account matters. You don't have control over either of these factors, so we legitimize it. We get you connected with people that validate and believe you and have your back. You start to advocate for yourself, become more decisive and choosy for your well-being, and that's where you break free of needing anything from the narcissistic individual. Instead, you're back in your power, you're back in your wholeness, you're back in connection with yourself, and then you're building healthy connection with other people who've got your back, who believe you, and who care about who you are and how you feel. Because that's what healthy people do. Unhealthy people have no interest in how you feel unless it benefits them. So remember that. Okay, guys, I appreciate you. Thank you for being here for today's training. Remember, ultimately, that you're worth knowing, loving, and keeping. And I will see you guys for tomorrow's training. Have a great day. Be safe out there, and talk to you soon.